I had to push myself and force myself to finish the obligations that I had created before I gotten pregnant. I just jumped in and I learned what I needed to learn as I went. And that taught me the power of like referral. Oh, here, you can go over to Tori and she will teach you how to make a quilt.
Yay! Awesome. Hi, everyone. Today I am with Tori McElwain. Hi, Tori. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to talk with you. I'm going to give your bio here, and then we'll just kiki. We'll just have fun and get to know each other.
Yeah, it sounds good.
So Tori is an accomplished quilter, workshop designer, and mentor. With a master's in education and a background in the tech industry, Tori possesses a unique blend of expertise in both instructional design and technology integration. She is deeply committed to empowering individuals and helping them enhance their teaching and learning skills. Love it. Tori provides invaluable support to fellow quilters and crafters, understanding the unique challenges they face and offering guidance for their courses and effective course promotion. Her dedication to serving others and her passion for creating impactful educational experiences make her an exceptional resource for crafters and creatives. Ooh, I love it.
Oh, it sounds amazing. When you read it, it sounds amazing.
It is. It is. It's really exciting. So welcome. Welcome to the Creator Jump Off.
I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. So we've never met before, and we are both in the same entrepreneurial group. And I reached out, I think last week, and decided I want to get this podcast going. And you were one of the first people to kind of raise your hand and say you'd be down to have a conversation. And so I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, I saw you put a call out for creatives. I'm like, hey, I'm a creative.
Yes. So I don't know about start at the beginning, but tell me about like, what was your entryway into crafting, into quilting, into creative work?
So into crafting, I've been crafting forever. I was a Girl Scout since I was 5. So I started as early as you could start. And I'm a lifetime member, actually. So I've been crafting for decades. My mom, though, was the first person to really get into quilting. My grandma was a seamstress. She didn't really quilt, but her sisters did. So she knew the basics and she would make blankets, but she didn't really make quilts. And then when she got older, she passed on this giant tote full of 6-inch squares to my mom of all like 70s polyester fabric. And my mom took those squares and got really into quilting. And that's when I got introduced to quilting. And she ended up going full blown into it she had purchased a long arm quilting machine, which is it's a 13-foot table. And the machine itself is ginormous. It's like huge. And what it does is quilt those 3 layers together to actually do the quilting. And she free motion quilts these beautiful designs in her quilting. So that's how I was introduced to quilting. I made my very first quilt when I was 9.
Wow.
And then my very first one completely on my own was at 12. And that one I was insistent on putting in lime green faux fur, which it was a rag quilt, and it does not rag the way you'd want a rag quilt to rag and fray at the edges. But I insisted on having it, and I still have this quilt. It still lasted. It still looks great.
Oh my God, that's amazing. It must be really hard to sew shag or fur, right?
It was. I was 12, and I was determined, and I made it work.
Amazing. I love how like quilting on your own wasn't hard enough. You're like, let me throw in a really challenging fabric on top of it too, because fashion, right?
And I love the color. And my favorite colors are still turquoise, purple, and lime green. And I had to have the lime green in there. It just wasn't going to work without it. My mom is like, cotton and polyester, faux fur, it doesn't really go together. I'm like, I don't care. It's soft and it's fuzzy. I want to try it. And she's like, okay, fine.
Yes, we're visionary. You were like, I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. Let me get that fur in there, okay?
Exactly. I wanted that fur.
Disrupting quilting, even at 12.
Yeah.
I love it. So then, so starting from lime green fur quilt at 12, did you just continue to quilt?
Yeah. So I quilted on and off between then and when I became an adult. I did go to college, so that ate up a lot of time. But I was So let me back up a little bit. So I am an active duty military spouse. And when I was in my junior year of college, we got married. And 2 weeks after we got married, he told me he wanted to join the military. 2 weeks after. Now he's a little bit older than me. So he went in a little bit older. And then we moved. And if you know anything about the military, we move a lot. And everywhere that we move has white walls. Everywhere. On-base housing, off-base housing, everything has white walls. So what I did was use my quilting as a way to keep myself busy and creative and my mind active while we were moving during all of his training, and to make our houses feel more like homes wherever we moved. So I always made a very colorful, very contrasting kind of quilt wherever we moved. So we have a collection of these beautiful, colorful quilts for every room in our house, for almost every season. So it helped make our houses feel more like homes. And then with all those moves, it became really hard to establish a career. So that's where I turned to taking this hobby and making it into a business.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. There's so much there. First, I wanted to ask you, what did you go to school for? What did you go to college for?
Yeah, so my BA is in history and I have a minor in child development. And then when we settled at our first duty station in Texas, I went for my teacher certification with a master's in curriculum and instruction at the same time while he was deployed. So that was a fun year.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds very fun.
Yeah. So that's my background. I taught kindergarten for 2 years and I really loved it. But it was a lot. And then at the end of my second year, a week afterwards, actually, my son was born. And that kind of turned my plans on its head as well.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, those are huge, huge things. Okay, so you had your son. Did you continue to teach kindergarten after that?
I did not, because after he was born, 3 months, he was 3 months old. 3 months old, we moved to South Carolina, which we were only there for about 7 months. So there was no way I could teach there. So I waited until we found out where we were moving next. And we had 90 days to move. We found out we were moving to Arizona. Now, when we got there, I applied to be a teacher. Then I got my foot in the door and realized the pay versus the childcare, I would be taking home about $800 a month. So instead of teaching, I dived into quilt making because at the time I was making and selling quilts. That's how I started.
Okay. So you were the quilt thing was like a side hustle kind of a thing, and then it turned into like a full-time thing?
Exactly. Because the military pays for your basic expenses. They barely cover just about everything. But if we had an unexpected expense, if we wanted to do anything fun, and I mean, like, I joke that I started quilting or selling quilts. I started my business to afford my Starbucks because I really just wanted to afford a Starbucks like a couple times a week. And we just didn't have that extra money. So that's when I started selling quilts and trying to make a little bit extra here and there so that we could, buy birthday presents, Christmas presents, pay for the garage that got broken or something. And that's how it blossomed. It blossomed from there.
Wow. Awesome. I love it. And what I appreciate about your story so far is that I think that there's this like common conception that like artists or creative, like we're doing it for funsies. But in your case, it really, it necessitated like a means to an end. Like you wanted Starbucks, but also it was like a way to make income in this, kind of challenging situation of moving a lot. I love that. Like it really became so like helpful and supportive in your life. Right. And it's not a superfluous thing, like I'm sure, it started as a hobby, but it was like, now it's a means to buying Starbucks and having more financial security.
Exactly. I was going back and forth between, should I use quilting as a business, like a side hustle, or make cupcakes? I really enjoyed baking. So I started both at the same time. And the cupcakes, they tasted really good, but they did not look good. So I dropped the cupcakes and stuck with the quilting. And it ended up being mostly like baby blankets and memory quilts. That was the big thing. And actually, I got to the point where I couldn't keep up with the demand and the cost per supplies. It was too much. So that's when I pivoted to teaching. So I taught quilting, and then I also started pattern designing at the same time because I wanted to create patterns to teach.
Wow. Wow. Okay, cool. Just to back up a second. So before we get into like teaching and pivoting your skills into like education, so how are you selling your quilts?
Yeah. So I started super basic. I went as basic as you can get. I opened up a Facebook group. That was when Facebook groups were like a new thing.
Yep.
Or fairly new. So I opened up a Facebook group. I told everybody, this is what I'm doing. I'm making quilts to sell. I made about 10 quilts, some basic patchwork, some baby blankets, and I put them in an album. And I had the directions to go in there and claim one if you wanted to purchase one. And then I had to figure it out from there. So I think I started out with PayPal was how I had them pay me at first. And then when I started doing workshops and pattern design, that's when I set up my first website.
Wow. I love it. You heard it here, folks. Like, you don't have to have this insane Shopify website, e-commerce platform or whatever. Like, you just made an album in I'm assuming like a local Facebook group. Wow. And then they just paid you.
Well, I made my own Facebook group. It wasn't somebody else's. It was my own. And I started going like craft shows and I invited my friends and family. They spread the word because I knew a lot of quilters because I shared my mom's a quilter. So they would always be asked to make quilts, but they didn't want to make quilts for other people unless it was a gift. So they sent them to me.
Awesome. So in the beginning, it was just all word of mouth. Like, it was just friends and family and people who knew you personally, and it grew from there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And so until you started doing patterns and teaching courses, you didn't have an e-commerce. Like, so were you only selling through Facebook? Did you do markets or anything in person as well?
I did do a few markets. I did around 6 or 7 before I pivoted. So that was pretty fun. That was probably my favorite part, honestly.
Yeah.
I love people walking by and just going, oh my gosh, look at this. Oh my gosh, look at this. And they come and I'm like, look at this one. This one has Minky. You're going to love this one.
Yeah. So, and also they are really fun. Like, for my Oracle, I have an Oracle deck and I do in-person events. And for me, they're not like the most lucrative or profitable for me, but they're fun. And I love meeting people and like talking to the other vendors. You learn so much from other vendors too about like selling and markets and what are the good ones and what are the bad ones. But yeah, tell me a bit more about like the few markets that you did. Like, did you sell out? Like, was it like a good experience for you?
So I did a little more than break even for about half of them. The other half, I broke even. So I was pretty happy with those revenue wise. I also had an inspiration book out there and I handed out cards for custom quilts, and that ended up generating a lot of leads. So I had a lot of people coming into my Facebook group. I had people reaching out for t-shirt quilts that I'd never met before, that didn't really know me, who got my card from somebody who saw me at the craft fair. And that's how I really made up that revenue, or the cost for the booth, was that not just selling what I had there, but also those referrals later coming in for custom quilts.
Wow.
That helped a lot.
Okay.
And that taught me the power of like referral. And so when I started like pattern designing and teaching, that's when I knew that I could ask for the ask. Like, do you have any friends that are asking you to teach them how to quilt? And I knew to put that in there because there are always people asking artists, how do you do what you do? Can you teach me? And I'm like, no, I don't want to teach you. I am doing the thing. Oh, here, you can go over to Tori and she will teach you how to make a quilt.
Wow. Amazing. And so was really the impetus was like you were at markets and like is it the patterns?
So at those were the actual quilts. Yeah. And when I was doing markets, they were actual quilts.
Okay. Sorry. What did you call it? Like, that they were like, you were finding other leads too, like, cause they wanted to learn or they wanted to make t-shirt quilts and stuff. So you saw that there was like an audience growing there that didn't just want to just purchase, but like they wanted to learn and kind of lean into their own quilting.
That reminds me, after you said that, they would actually ask me at the markets too if I taught. And that's how I started teaching, was one-on-one lessons. Before I moved from South Carolina to Arizona, I started with one-on-one lessons.
I love it. And that's something too, like I think my audience is like creatives and like they're thinking about a business or like they're just starting out and stuff. And which is really like a scary leap, right? Like to jump into things, right? Like, and I love that like at the, doing the thing and like being at the market, you got feedback from your audience. You got feedback from your customers. These are really cool, but like, do you teach it, right? Like, can you show me how to do it? And so you had this like one-on-one market research happening at that time, which is like so invaluable, right? So then you knew okay, like let's pivot and let's start teaching. So
exactly.
So talk to me about that. Like what was what was like the first kind of iteration of this new business of teaching?
So, like I said, it started one-on-one, and I realized that I couldn't open up time enough for one-on-one. So I moved to full group. And this is right after COVID hit. So I had started thinking about teaching online. I had actually signed up to teach this company where we teach kids in China English. So I had done that for 6 months, and I was tired of waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and realized it wasn't for me, but I could use that skill with the quilting workshops. So it was an easy transition from learning from that company and then moving to my own, like Zoom. I just started with Zoom. I just had them sign up and I sent them a Zoom link and they would come, and I did beta classes at first where I had everyone that were like family and friends and like referrals from family and friends, so friends of friends. So I had my first group was about, I want to say like 7 or 9, somewhere in there, 7 or 9. Yeah, because some didn't come to the second one because I did a series, of course. I always do a series. But I did beginner quilting, and I did levels. So I did level 1, level 2, and level 3. And I had a great beta group that gave me feedback. What was really funny was I started with this, I bought a camera without really understanding what I was getting. I hooked it up to my laptop and it ended up being like a fishbowl view of like my entire sewing room. So it was a really kind of an awkward start, but they rolled with it, and I was able to like use my phone for a second camera so they could see up close, and it just got rolling from there.
Wow. So it sounds like too, like just getting started, like was very lean. Like you used your laptop, you used your phone, right? So your expenses were pretty low at this point.
Yeah, I tried to keep it simple. I wanted to get started. I knew that if I was able to get started and get it going, I would get a little more funds to buy more what I might need. With the website, that was my first big, I say big, but it was like my first big investment in my own business was buying a $400 website where I could charge people for the classes. That was my first big thing. And that came after level 1. So I did the level 1 beta where I had like 9 people show up. And then I was able to pay mostly for the website. And then the second class came, and that was when I had like 7 do it again. And it was just, yeah, it started from there. I kept it as simple as I could. And I built my own website. I used Wix, which had all those built-in like templates and stuff. So I didn't have to overthink. I just put up there what I needed. And I got 1 pattern designed. I had 3 people test it before I launched it. And then I just launched it. I just threw it out there.
Wow, I love it. So I want to like take a moment and talk about like I want to hear about like your mindset through all of this, because like we're like, you know, like we're just charging through your story and it sounds amazing, and you're just like, I made a green fur quilt for my first quilt, and that, and then I started quilting, after college and stuff like that. But talk to me about like, like maybe to kind of back up, like when you started selling quilts, and then also pivoting into, like online courses and teaching quilting, like what was like your biggest kind of mental block that you had, or like, were you pretty gung ho about starting these new endeavors?
I was not gung-ho. I was terrified. I mean, I had student debt hanging over my head as well. So that was a huge motivator to get this going. I wanted to provide for my family. I wanted to be able to contribute financially. So that's when I did what I do best, and I started researching and learning the next step after I figured out that I wanted to do quilts instead of cupcakes. So I just figured out, what do I need in order to get this working, and who do I need to talk to? How do I get people to see what I'm offering? And it started, like I said, like very basic. And then I would just trust in the process. I would trust in my own research that I was doing. And I did it in fear. Like they talk about, the only way to get courage to do something new is to do the thing. So I did the thing, even though I was terrified. I shook the entire first beta class. I didn't know if I was doing this right. I didn't know if they could see. I had like the second beta class, the camera fell over. When I started quilting, making quilts for hire, I didn't know all the skills that a professional quilter needed. I just jumped in and I learned what I needed to learn as I went. Quilting a full-size top it's huge, and it's hard to get that size through a domestic sewing machine. So one thing I learned to do was to figure out how to quilt such a big size in my little domestic sewing machine. And I also had to learn how to free motion quilt. So I had to learn as I went. And then making custom quilts. I had never used stabilizer before somebody asked me for a t-shirt quilt. So I used my own t-shirts and created a t-shirt quilt so I could experiment and try it out and see how these different stabilizers worked. And then I took it one step at a time. And then when I told them, hey, I've never made one before, they were like, that's fine. I just really want it done. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And I gave them a discount because this would have been my, technically third t-shirt quilt because I had made a few with my mom. So I had a little bit of help there. She kind of understood the process better than I did. But my first one on my own was the one I made right before that first order. And I told her, like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm happy to give this a try. And she's like, I trust you. This is going to be great. So I'm really glad she put that faith in me. But like applique, I had no idea how to applique. I had to teach myself how to applique. Same thing with foundation paper piecing. I jumped into a pattern test because that pattern looked really cool. And she's like, hey, it's foundation paper piecing. Have you ever foundation paper pieced before? And I left that email on read. I went to YouTube and that night I taught myself how to foundation paper piece. And I downloaded a free pattern, foundation paper piece. And the next day I said, hey, I've done a little bit of foundation paper piecing and I'd love to give this a shot. And she let me test it, which was amazing. And that's where my motivation came from. I really wanted to learn. I really wanted to make this work. And I really wanted to understand all these different aspects of quilting. So I experimented. I just jumped in and tried to figure out the next step.
This episode is brought to you by the Creator Jump Off community. You're a creative who's running a side hustle and you feel super overwhelmed and confused by everything you have to do. I have something real awesome for you. It's called the Creator Jump Off community, and it's built to help you feel organized, focused, and empowered so you can hit your business goals this year. This is not a get-rich-quick thing. It's legit business training, community, and coaching, all taken from my experience as a creative entrepreneur for over 15 years. Life is too short to make art that you hate. Come check out the Creator Jump Off community and see how you can kickstart a profitable side hustle starting today. Go to nataliemertz.com/creatorjumpoff to learn more. Wow. I love it. Yeah. Myself too. Like, I feel like I'm always in practice saying what I preach to like clients and stuff like that of like, just start, and thinking about things like this isn't the end all be all. Like this is phase one, and phase one is going to be messy and there's going to be spelling errors or, mistakes or whatever. But you just have to get in there. Like you just have to start and figure it out, like figure out this new pattern, figure out this new technique of quilting. I really love that. It sounds too like maybe your mom was like a big support, but did you have other support or like other quilters that you like talk to and kiki about, the business of quilting?
So my mom she was there and she was a good reference for a few things. She got really into the quilting part of it. Like I said, her gigantic machine, but the piecing, she wasn't really into piecing. There was no other support. I had to teach myself. So I had books at that point. I had YouTube and I had a lot of spare fabric from my mom, which was lucky because fabric is expensive. So she sent me a lot of scraps to play with. But again, it was shipped to me. So it wasn't like a lot, but she told me to go get muslin and give it a shot. And that's what I did. I used a few books from the library and from my mom shipped one to me. It was like Eleanor Burns. If any quilters, they probably know Eleanor Burns. And she was one of the original like big quilters who made a ton of books for beginner quilting. And so I used her book and I used YouTube.
YouTube University, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And yeah, I love like you had a need, you need to make more money. You need to do something where it can be completely remote because you're moving a lot. And you just jumped in. And I'm assuming too, like by the smile on your face and the way that you're talking about it, it seems like you really enjoyed this process. Am I wrong?
I did. I mean, it was terrifying in some parts, but I figured it out. And every time I did, I felt so accomplished. Like, I was like, I did it. I figured this out and it looks great. Like, and I can keep doing this. And I had so much fun teaching myself all these different quilting techniques to make all these quilts that people were asking me for. And then I started And then when I started designing, that was even more fun. So it became partly what I was interested in and partly what people were asking me for. And then I know it's a little different from what you hear from most crafters and creatives that get into the business side of their hobby, where usually people are pulling them out of their hobby into a business, where mine, I jumped out of it and I used it as a business. It's a little bit flipped than what you normally hear when you're talking to crafters and creatives, but I had to look at my skills, and I had teaching. I had, again, baking, which wasn't great. And well, it tasted great, but it didn't look great. And I had quilting. And those are like my main things that I had. So I used the skills I had to do what I needed to do to help my family.
Yeah, I love it. Like you said, that's the sweet spot, right? Where it's like, it's something that you really enjoy, meeting where a need out in the marketplace, right? And they made this like beautiful concoction, which is your business now, your course creation, coaching, etc. So talk to me about where you're at today with your business.
So I've hit creative burnout. So I will caution creatives against that. I realized later on, it took me 4 years to realize this, but I realized that using my hobby as a business was not great for me, that I needed to slow down. When I got pregnant with my second child, I was really sick. Like, I had no energy. It wasn't a horrible pregnancy, but it was one that left me with no energy. So I had to really cut back on everything that I was doing. And I had to push myself and force myself to finish the obligations that I had created for that year before I got pregnant. And it caused me to hit creative burnout so hard that I still cannot touch fabric. She's almost 2. No, she's a little over a year and a half. She's about 20 months old. So I have yet to really be able to quilt. I've designed one full pattern since she was born out of loss of a friend. It pushed that creative spirit back for a little while, but I haven't been able to quilt. I can't touch fabric right now. But I did really enjoy the business part. Like, I love helping people. I love watching their eyes light up. It's the same as when you're teaching kindergarten, watching the light bulbs go off and their eyes light up and their excitement. It's the same feeling of accomplishment and pride in what you're doing and how you're helping people. So I dived into that side. And I used my background. Again, I looked back at my skills. What else do I have? I have teaching. And I'm seeing this need of these amazing creators that want to teach, but they don't know how, and it's stopping them. Either they don't know how to do it at all, or they just don't know how to do it virtually. And it's just stopping them in their tracks. And so that is the very niche market I am now turned towards, is helping quilting teachers and crafting teachers, because they reached out on the edges of that niche. They reached out and started asking me questions as well, and helping them create courses and workshops that then they can spread this beautiful craft that we all love. And especially with quilting, it's known as like your grandma's hobby. It's not really known as a younger generation hobby, or even midway. Like, I'm a millennial and I am the youngest in the room and almost everywhere I go in the quilting industry. And we need more people to be involved in that quilting industry. And I think the best way to get people involved is to teach, is to show them what you can do with quilting and how much fun it is and how creative you can get and how experimental, and like, you can use quilting in all kinds of things. But I'm going to get off my soapbox there. But yeah, that was where I turned. I turned to teaching the teacher, because that's where my background was. And from there, I had these teachers who had a workshop and they were really excited about it, but they didn't know how to get eyes on it. And that's when I started with the digital marketing magic community, where I teach them the basic plan of digital marketing and how to get more eyes on their workshops. And that is brand new, and it's been going really well. We have I had 50 quilters join for the free trial, and I got some really great feedback. Like you said, feedback is key. And I've learned how crucial feedback is. Like, it is amazing. So if you're at markets and stuff, like she was talking about, listen to what your customers are saying, take note of what they're asking you for. Because even later on, if you're not ready to start like teaching or anything right now, you can always look back and see what they were asking about before. But that has been a new thing that I didn't think that I would get to, because I was teaching workshops and I was able to market them digitally. Like, I didn't do too much in person. I had 2 young kids and it was COVID. I couldn't go anywhere. So I learned how to come up with a plan and digital marketing that allowed me to quilt, to teach, and to market without feeling overwhelmed. And that's what I'm teaching them, is that plan. And so far it's going great. And it just keeps growing. And I'm just paying attention to what they need and what I enjoy. And I dive into that. And so far it's been amazing. This year is that big pivot year that you just shared, where I pivoted to teaching the teacher full on. I did not design a pattern after March. I have been fully helping teachers for the last, since March, 7-8 months. I've fully dived into this new niche, and it has been so rewarding and so much fun. And I love watching them grow and start teaching. It's been amazing.
I love that. You're like, it's oozing out of you. You know what I mean? Like, if anyone doubted your sincerity, you just have to like watch the video of you, because you just like really
I'm like turning red. And sometimes I get start talking, and then I'm like, wait, Tori, slow down. You're talking way too much here.
I love you getting fired up. And something that I appreciate, I think, as you know, in terms of the journey of a creative too, is a lot of us pivot. Our journey like evolves, or the things that we're excited about or interested in and stuff, you know, changes. And that is totally okay, right? Like, you know, like either you stay in your lane your whole career, which is cool, or not, right? And I have a very similar story. Like, I started in graphic design and branding, and then I created an Oracle deck and learned how to like sell product, right? And now I have a service-based business where I coach and I have courses as well and stuff. But all of it is like based on the experience from before, right? And you know, like obviously like there's a through line with you, obviously with quilting and stuff, but really like it sounds like and it looks like you're following your excitement, right? And you're listening to yourself. And, you know, when I related with the burnout, I was burnt out as a designer, you know, and I will always love it. In fact, I owe my friend a logo. I need to like vectorize a logo after
my
this
sister's still waiting on a pillow.
Yeah, right. You know, like once people know, you know, you could do logos or quilts or whatever, kind of like always helping out in the background, joyfully, happily make it a little simple logo or whatever. But yeah, it's an evolution, and I love how like it sounded like that pivot is working in your business, but also it was working for you personally, you know. And I think that we don't have to, you know, flagellate ourselves with all this work and do shit we don't really want to do. Like if we, you know, I really believe in like showing up and doing the things that we're really excited about and passionate about, even if that means like a little bit of a pivot, you know, there's room for that too, right? In our business. And if I can show up, like you have this huge smile, you're just like lit up when you're talking about your business. And you're also talking about how it's like really taking off, right? Like with your audience and stuff. And I believe it's like attracts like, right? So like the energy that you're pouring into your business, because it's lighting you up, it's feeding you. You had to pivot out of this burnout from quilting. It's paying off.
I think so. I hope so.
Awesome. I love it. So, okay, a couple of questions. Okay, so you mentioned too, so you're teaching the teachers, but you're also teaching marketing. And is there like, I think marketing trips up most business owners and trips up creatives. It certainly trips me up too. Like I just did a whole overhaul of my marketing last week. Is there like, you know, like you talked about simplifying it, right? So it's not so painful so that you can do these different things like in your businesses. Is there like maybe a word of advice or some kind of little nugget that you can share maybe from, you know, what you've learned or what you teach a little bit, not to give anything away, but just maybe like a little.
Oh, I'm happy to share. So thinking from service-based standards, because I realized with those 50 quilters that came in, the best way my framework works is with service-based. So if you're teaching, if you have a service where you're making quilts or you're long arming, that is where my framework is really working. And I always suggest when you're thinking about your marketing and you're doing some content type of marketing, and with that content, you want to be doing something you enjoy. So if you're a talker, podcasting could be great. If you are a talker and are comfortable in front of the camera, videos are great. If you do not like to talk live, if it makes you nervous, if the camera makes you nervous, writing can be a good way. So a blog can be a great way. Photography or picture taking, whichever one you want to call it. A blog can also be great for that. So it's just thinking about creating content that's going to warm up your audience, that's going to answer questions they have about what you're teaching. It's going to show them the best way to do something that you've figured out, and to stick with, and I call it the hostess with the mostest. You want to find the host for your content that you like to do, and your audience will follow you. And like we were talking about with pivoting, and you want to pivot in your business, but you're not sure if your customers are going to pivot with you, just bring them along with you. Do not create in a vacuum. Bring them along for the journey. So if you're going from, I watched a quilter go from quilting her own kind of applique designs into fabric dyeing. And she brought us along with her. And then she started doing classes on fabric dyeing, and her whole business just came along with her. It didn't look like she lost any momentum. It looked like she even grew, honestly, because she was able to go into a permanent brick and mortar that is not a traditional like quilt shop. It was just more of an office space with retreat access. And that's what she was able to do. And it was great to see. And she's a great example that I can even share with my quilters is like, look, if you want to pivot, do it. Follow your curiosity. I never say follow your passion, because I never feel like passion, like per se, but I feel a lot of curiosity. I feel a lot of excitement, and, follow the energy and just bring your audience along with you, and they'll follow you.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about the exchange of energy, they'll follow your energy.
Yeah. Yep. Same thing that we were talking earlier about our businesses and really focusing on doing things that we love. I 100% agree with you. It's like, if you hate video, don't do video. Yes. No one is holding a gun to your head saying you have to do video, right? Like, lean into your strengths, like lean into what you enjoy in your work and in your marketing. And yes, and I appreciate that too, of like, let your audience follow you. Maybe not everyone will, but for the most part they will. And also, like, I just think about, when I started coaching, I was like, should I start a new Instagram? And I did. And then I very quickly just closed it down. And I went back to using my personal one. And this is something yeah. This is also something like Rachel Rogers talks about too. Like, she was who's like, I adore, it's like a business mentor. And, and so I just use my personal for my business. Right. And I just kind of like, and that's just for me, maybe it's not for everybody, but if you pivot, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to start new Instagram accounts and new websites or whatever. But I think people really appreciate behind the scenes, right? And seeing that progression, and that you're human, right? Like, you're not superhuman or whatever. And they enjoy watching the journey with you, and I think people get curious too, like, why are you pivoting? Like, what's going on over here? So I really appreciate that piece of advice. I didn't get a chance to do this before our episode, but it's something I want to do going forward. So I'll just ask you, because I want to give some good wisdom nuggets from you for quilters. But what are some really common questions that you get from your quilting community, whether it be about marketing or just getting started? But is there a few questions you just have gotten a million times?
Social media is always one. It's always one. They're like, what do we do with social media? Because like I said, they're usually 55 and older, and they don't always understand why they need to get on social media, because they go to these business courses. They, many of them, not all of them, but they see the businesses if they don't go to a business course, and they think they have to be on all the social media platforms and use it correctly and use it right and use it this particular way. And exactly, you're shaking your head. No, you don't need to do that. So social media, it's all about being social. And that's why I said, do what you enjoy, and then do your content, do what you enjoy, and then just share it on social media. Just share what you're doing. Share, I do blog posts. I do blog posts twice a month, and then I'll share the tips from there into my social media and say, if you want to see more, go see the blog post. That's where my energy goes, is nurturing my quilt teachers. I don't want to be on social media all the time. And that's part of the simplifying, is you create that content and then you break it up. You don't remake something for every single thing. And that's always a question, is what do I do with social media? It's you're just talking to people. It's a social platform. If you're social, it'll work for you. If you're just posting as a business, it's not going to work for you. So it's like, one thing I try to encourage is to try to make it part of your creative process. That's why we do something we enjoy with it. So if you like doing video, do the video and then share the video on social media and share the background behind it. Share a little tidbit in there. Share, something that you're enjoying doing and try to make it part of your creative process, not something that is a chore, because it will be a chore if you make it a chore. And then they'll feel that energy and it's not going to work for you.
Yep. Yep. Couldn't agree more. And the thing is too, this is something that's been coming up a lot in conversations I've been having too, is like, where are you connecting with people right now? And, if that's in person, lean into that, lean into the marketing there. Like social media is an excellent tool, obviously. And it's like, you have the whole world potentially to get in front of. But, I've talked to some clients and like, and even myself, like with Instagram, I don't get leads from Instagram. I like barely, I don't get a lot of interaction. LinkedIn a little bit more, but a lot of it is very direct. So I don't pay so much attention to Instagram. You know what I mean? And so just looking at that too, like there's so many different avenues. And right, like I don't edit my reels. I just ramble. I don't cut it up. I don't speed it up.
I love that.
And yet people, I don't know, I still like get DMs every once in a while, like, oh, that was really good, right. So it's like, there's no right way of doing it. It's just doing it. Mm-hmm. Right. And just showing up imperfectly. And like you said, like just diving into the deep end. Right. And yeah, and I like what you said about passion too. Passion comes and goes or whatever, or, but it's like following, your excitement, right? And like following your curiosity. And I think that those are really good indicators that you're onto something that you really enjoy, and just, again, like just leaning into that as much as you can. Sure, there's stuff in business like we all, hate doing.
Something.
Yeah. And my goal is like, I can't wait to make enough money to hire people to do that shit for me, where I can just focus on, what I really, really enjoy.
I've got a VA that does my reminder emails. And I am so excited because the reminder emails just like drain all of my energy. So I have a community. So we're just sending reminder emails out like multiple times a month. And I have to go in and create every single one. It's just copy paste, but like it takes forever. And it's just like, but yeah, totally agree with that.
Yeah. Wait, so talk more about that. So is it just you and your VA? Do you have anyone else on your team?
No, I have so I'm currently writing a book. So she's my only other person. I have a content editor and she's been amazing. So I'm self-publishing and it's almost done. It's supposed to be done like last month, but there's a lot of stuff happened in the this past fall. So it got pushed off a little bit, but she is another person that I've had on my team. I'm in 2 communities. So I'm in the one that we're in, and then I'm in a military spouse centered one called the Association of Military Spouse Entrepreneurs. And Moni, who runs it, is very hands-on and she's been amazing. And so I've been really getting a lot of help with both communities and then and referrals and things like that. And that's where I found my content editor. And then I have my VA who's only here. She works for me about 3 hours a week, mainly doing those reminder emails and the newsletter for the community, because it's very straightforward. It's like, here's what we're doing for the month, and then setting those reminder emails, because gosh, it just takes so long. And then I had her also for a little while doing some social media stuff and just like pulling those tips from the blog post to kind of save me a little bit more time there. But that's where I'm at right now, and it's been working really well. It's given me a lot more free time.
Was it a big hurdle for you to hire a VA?
Oh yeah. It was a little nerve-wracking. I had to talk to my husband about budgeting, and like we created this plan that I was going to have her do projects, and then because I revamped my blog, because like I said, I wanted to post every 2 weeks and make sure that those are all in line. They've got the links, because I pivoted, like I said, so I put in a new lead magnet and things like that. So I had her doing that project, and then when that was done, we saw that the community was taking off. I say taking off, we have 5 members. Like, no, we have 7. We have 7 now. We have 7 members in there full time. And it's been just amazing having this recurring revenue every month. But she's able to stay on and help me with that particular project. And I'm hoping as we grow to give her more stuff or hire somebody new and take over more of the, what's the next project? Oh, the book launch. We're going to work on the book launch next. That's what we're doing.
That's so exciting. I can't wait. Well, we'll have to like Kiki when it launches and you can promote it with my audience. That's so amazing. Exciting. And like with the VA, so you budgeted and whatnot, which I love, but I also have a VA and like I definitely had to go through like mental hurdles to like get over like delegating things and stuff, but it's great because she does stuff that I hate doing, like email reminders, you know what I mean? Or scheduling things or, setting things like setting forms up in my website and whatnot. And that's like so much agita and time off my plate. Yes. Right. And also it can be really inexpensive, like you said, like they work about 3 hours a week. Mine, we cap it, I think at very maximum, like 5 or 10 hours a week. So it's actually quite affordable. It just like getting that stuff off your plate so you can do more of the, really important stuff in your business, is like super valuable. Can you tell me a little bit about the book?
Yeah, it's called Workshops Unleashed. And I look really proud of the title, but it's called Workshops Unleashed, and it is focused on taking the reader through creating a workshop and then doing some basic promotion at the end of the book. So they start with like how to create your time to create this workshop. And then it goes through the process of picking your audience, it's not a title, what is it called? Yeah, I guess it would be a name, the name of your workshop. So it kind of takes you through that. The description, which is really key for marketing, is figuring out how you're describing the workshop. Because so many quilters will just go up there and say, we're doing half square triangles. Great. They're not going to want to take a class for half square triangles. Most quilters already know how to make half square triangles. You have to like reiterate, what is it that you're teaching? What is your end goal? You begin with the end in mind. So what is your objective? What are they getting out of this at the very end? And things like that. So it walks them through that and then a little bit of mapping. And then how do we end it? We end it with some marketing. And that's the part where I am finishing up right now, is that little bit at the end there. I was trying to figure out, how do I want to end this? And what do I need to include to make sure they can have a successful workshop without diving too far off the end and, getting lost in the marketing part of it. Because so many will get lost in the market. Like we talked about earlier, it's such a big thing for most people where they kind of dive into it, get lost in thinking they have to do all the things. So that's where I'm at right now, is trying to figure out that very last part. But that's the book, is just walking you through how to create your own creative workshop. It's hands-on. It has some learning science in it. It has some practical exercises, and then it has how to set it up for success with the student journey. So beginning to end. Yeah. Workshops Unleashed.
Oh my God. That's incredible. And do you have any idea when it will be published?
I'm hoping for December, because I'm currently that is, I know, I'm like on it, right? Like we were like looking at the time and I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I am trying very hard to make it happen. So that's what my main focus is currently, is trying to figure out that last part. And that's why I'm kind of like, it's something that we're going to meet with actually in the next few days. And we're going to kind of hash out exactly what I need to include, because I tend to want to put everything in the kitchen sink. And she's like, hold on, Tori, hold on. Like she's the one that pointed out they're going to get lost in the marketing. So I'm like, okay, you're right. So we need to stop and like rehash this out and figure this out. But yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Cool. It sounds incredible. It sounds like super robust, and like you have so much knowledge and expertise already, and just distilling down all that information. So I am so excited for it to come out. So you'll have to keep me posted on when it publishes. But Tori, this was so fantastic. I love your energy. I love your enthusiasm. You like the joy that you emit talking about your business is the proof in the pudding. And I really love that. That's like my whole mission, is like, life is too short to do work that we hate, right? And we have these, incredible talents and inspirations and creative outlets. And I really believe like if we lead into them, they will, we serve the creative master, it will serve us back, and that's very apparent with you. So thank you so much for joining today. I so enjoyed talking with you. And will you share like how people can follow you? They can get in touch. What your website is?
You're making me blush. I have to like calm down for a second. Okay. Yeah, so I'm at, so my business name is still reflecting quilt making, quilt designing. So it's the Quilt Patch by Tori. There's a lot of quilt patches out there, but there's only one by Tori. So you'll find everything on my website there. And my main social media is going to be Instagram, which is quilt_patch. It's my handle.
Awesome. And we'll include that in the show notes for the podcast too. So you can take a look there. But Tori, this was such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. Please follow Tori at Instagram so that you can go buy her book when it gets published. And thanks for coming to the Creator Jump Off.
Thank you, Natalie. This was really fun.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hey there. Thank you so much for joining our podcast today. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you would consider liking, subscribing, and even leaving us a comment. This way, it will help us to keep the podcast alive and continue to bring you some really awesome interviews and nuggets of creative wisdom. So thank you again for checking us out. I'll see you next time.